So I've realized after starting this channel and going through all of the basics of what we do here, talking about streaming guides, tech reviews, all of this gear and everything that comes into being a creator, I think I might have missed a step. And I want to make sure I back up and do that step. And in this video, I'm going to tell you about who I am, where I came from, what I've done, everything that has to do with me, and so that you can get a closer connection and understand my story and know my background. And I've probably trickled some of this into some live streams over the past 3 years. And the truth is, if you've been a part of those, you probably have a really good connection to who I am, what my mission is, what my goal is in life, and how that hasn't changed since I started content creation. And so in this video, we're going to walk through kind of like me as a kid till now, and that impact of where did I start, where am I going, how am I getting there, and what is my future goals. And this video is also to serve as every year I do a kind of like a business goal. It's called a business plan, and also your like 5-year goals. And so I always rethink what those are every year. And last year I live streamed it, and this year I figured I would do it here for you guys. So let's go back all the way to where I first began my life career as a creator. And oddly enough, it is 29 years before the beginning of this channel. My birthday was July 12, 1990. I was born here in this area. I've actually grown up here. I'm not going to give too much explanation because honestly, I don't want you showing up to my house and be like, hey, what's up, yo? But the truth is, I grew up in South Carolina and I love it where I'm at. We've kind of branched off and moved away-ish from where I grew up at my family home, where my family still stays today. But we've kind of been in the area. And from that, from a very early age, I started becoming someone who was very consumed with not only just taking things apart, but trying to be the competitive person, leading this charge and being the person on top. And that showed itself when I started trying to learn multiplication, when my brother was learning it, 3 years older than me, Spartacus Titus, I'm sure you all know, or have seen in some other videos of mine. So I was learning his multiplication tables when I was not even in like school yet. And so honestly, if it wasn't for like me learning off of him and doing what I'm doing, I don't know, we'll see about that. Anyway, let's fast forward to how it works with tech and where we ended up today, and just kind of talk about my life. A very early part of my life, based upon where it was, I was 8, and my brother and I got our very first Game Boy. We'd already played the Nintendo system, like NES, and loved that Duck Hunt, Zelda, all that stuff on NES. That's great. But we got our first Game Boy and we went into Pokemon. And from there, that started our love. Truly, my love for gaming was getting Pokemon, us beating that, moving on from that. Then we got like PS1 and 64 and all those other consoles. And looking back at what gaming was then to compare to what it is now, it's such a different environment, but you had to really work around things that you don't have to work around today with bugs and stuff, and just accept that it's part of the game. It was a feature rather than a bug. And so we learned to operate within that. And then we finally got our first computer. And from this is when I started getting into trying to tear apart computers. This was like 12, 13, and starting to take apart hard drives, upgrade computers, figure out what they were. I mean, we're talking about, this is early 2000s. I think the graphics card was like 32 megs of VRAM or something like that. And it was so old. It was an NVIDIA card. It was absolutely crazy. But we played a video game back then that technically I still play to this day. It's called Eternal Lands. You should go check it out. I'll leave a link in the bio. But anyway, so all of that to say, my gaming career started really early, talking about gaming. And the actual name of this channel, Cyrus, came about when Darkened Cyrus came out when I started getting on Xbox. And so that was my channel name. And if you find me on any platforms, that's where it is. But really, where I am today has nothing to do with technology. It has everything to do with the other side, what I don't talk about too much. And I wanted to be able to share that. So in 5th grade, I started violin. And when I was a violin player, early on, I started kind of holding on to the skills that was there and kind of excelling and not being the best in the class, but I was doing great and doing decent. And it was recognized pretty early on. You know, I went into 7th grade. I was in like honors and the region orchestras and stuff like that, and just doing well in music. And I had this really influential 7th grade teacher. His name is Mr. Reed. No clue where he is today. He like left after that year to be a missionary. But anyway, he basically instilled in me this thought that if you want something, you grow it. And if you want something, you go for it. And if you don't want it, then it's not worth your time. Like, don't waste your time chasing something that doesn't act like it's going to make a difference in your life. And so that was where we were doing like this thing called tap orchestra, where we would come in and play fiddle tunes. So South Carolina, we would play fiddle tunes as a group and kind of just experience making something together, whether it be a good product, a bad product, completely trash product. I mean, it was whatever was at the time what we found. And so out of that, we went into 8th grade and into 9th grade. And once I got into high school and really started trying to understand who I was, that was where that point was. Where am I going to be? Who am I going to be? Do I love music? I love technology. And at this time I was working on cars with my dad, built my first car, and all of that stuff. And, you know, Dad taught me everything about being a mechanic. But, you know, when it comes to that, I was talking about being like an auto body person. And so, you know, with someone who had so many options in front of him, and I was blessed in that case, just know that. And I wasn't blessed monetarily. It was just that for some reason I was just catching on to things easier. And some of you are like that and some of you aren't. You have to really work for something. And what I had was, some people would say, as a blessing, but honestly, now being 20 years later than that, it was so a curse, because it created this false sense of accomplishment, because those who worked for it had the skills ingrained in them. Those who it came to naturally, it was like this, when you finally had to work something, you had to work for something, and you felt slighted. You felt like you were owed something when truthfully you weren't owed anything. So anyway, got into high school, got into music, went through that, was doing great, AP classes. Everything looked good. I was set up for college. Still didn't know what I was going for, but grades were doing okay. Junior year was probably the pivotal moment of my life. And it till today has been the most pivotal moment of my life. And I'm like stumbling over the words, because to this day, I'm still kind of understanding how this impacts everything of my life, but I know how it does. And I keep saying it, but the truth is it's she. And my wife, her name is Aston. She is absolutely amazing. Aston was a cello player in the orchestra, but it wasn't that she was just a cello player. You know, she was talented, and everything that she did it as well. Completely different cliques. We'd been in school all together all the way through, you know, every single grade. We were in every orchestra class. We were even in core classes together. But when it came to 11th grade, there was just something. And I could tell a huge story about how the two of us finally came to become a couple. I don't necessarily, maybe I tell the story. I guess I should tell the story. Okay. Long story short, she was dating this guy, and maybe the guy will watch the video. If you do watch the video, just know, yeah, I did all this intentional. Anyway, sorry, I beat the mic most likely. A junior year came, and Aston and I finally made a connection, and she was dating this guy at the time. They'd been together for 2 years, and I could just tell from the outside it was just not the relationship that was going to be there. And so I said, you know what? I want to be the person that's dating her. How do I get there? And I said, okay, let's create a plan, just like everything else that we've done. And so every month I increased my level of affection with her all the way up until the inevitable. I would, like, one month I was holding her hand, or actually no, one month I was like giving her a hug. And then the next month I was giving her a hug and like walking her to class with the boyfriend there, by the way. You have no idea how stressful this was, but I was committed. She is that awesome. all the way up until the last month where I was holding her hand, walking her to class, and hugging her in front of the next class in front of him. And so, long story short, they broke up. He called me, and he didn't call me. At that time, cell phones were like T9 text. Those of you youngins don't know what T9 text is, but anyway, essentially I had heard that he wanted to fight me, and we went outside, and he was like, come on, fight me, whatever. And I was like, fighting you doesn't mean anything. I've got the girl, so it doesn't matter what you can do to me now. It sounds so bad. I was like a home wrecker. But we were 16, so it wasn't really wrecking home. Every time I tell this story, I feel so awful. But the truth is, out of all of that, Aston and I became a couple. And we became a couple on January 3rd, 2007 at 4:01 p.m. and or 4:10 p.m. Was it 4:01? I think it's 4:01 p.m. And it was actually at a showing at a local movie theater where I had a ring pop and asked her to be my girlfriend, and I handed her out and asked that. It was crazy. Anyway, I kissed her on the first date too. We're just going to leave that alone. But the truth is, long story short, that moment where Aston has been that person that I fought for, she's now the person who fights for me, not in the way of like being a partner or anything, but she supports me in everything that I do. And honestly, none of this would be possible without her. And why do I say that is because she and I are obviously still together. We just passed like coming up on 11 years of marriage next week. We have a beautiful son, you know, he's just turned 4. It's crazy. And it's just honestly, all of that has just been kind of a whirlwind. But backing up to 11th grade where we first started getting together, you know, I was consumed with her. She was consumed with me. I actually quit. I was in track and field. I didn't run, obviously. I was doing field, and I quit that. That's a long story too, but there's no reason really to get into that. Just when you're disrespected, you're disrespected. So I just said I was done. And so senior year comes around. I'm trying to apply for colleges, and I apply for USC Columbia. I apply for Furman University and several others, and I had auditions. And honestly, if I'd been a little bit more, what is that, on the front of something advantageous, or if I was like on it and an early bird, I probably wouldn't have went down the path that I went down. But I did do things late because typical me fashion. I have a monitor over here I keep looking at, by the way. Typical me fashion, that's kind of how it happened. And so I had a call from a local university. It was actually North Greenville University. You can look them up. It's a Baptist college. And they called me, and the orchestra director was there, and he said, hey, I need a concert master for my orchestra. And if you don't know what that is, I'll explain it. But he said, I need a concert master for my orchestra. I've heard about you. Can you come and audition to see if you can get a scholarship to come to our school? And I was like, oh yeah, sure. I've never heard your university, and you know, that's kind of what it is. And I was like, you know what? Cool. Sure. When's the audition? He was like, I feel like he called me on like a Friday or a Thursday, and the audition was like the Saturday. I think I only had like 2 days to prepare, or maybe it was 3 days, but it was a small window, and I didn't have jack ready. Like, I had music I'd played, but I didn't have jack ready. And I was like, you know what? Sure, I'll be there. He's like, you got something ready? I was like, yeah, sure. I'll bring it to you at the audition. I had no clue what I was playing. But anyway, I went to the audition and played some pretty awesome stuff. Felt like I did horrible. Ended up getting an entire full ride to the college for music. And it kind of cemented my path for the next 14 years of my life, really. And just kind of said, this is what you're going to be doing. Music is your life. And I was like, you know what? I'm okay with that. Apparently I'm good at this. I have had to somewhat work at it. I had some natural talent, and I jumped into it. And I was like, okay, so I'll commit. And the reason I'm telling you this, going back, concert master, if you want to know what that is, that's the first violinist. It's a section. Okay, imagine that there's violins, violas, cellos, bass, first violin, the very first player. It's usually the best player in the orchestra or the best leader in the orchestra. I was that person at my school as well as at that university for all 4 years. And whatever that may be. So whatever came out of that, I said, okay, I'll go to college. And at that time, Aston was looking at colleges in Charlotte, and so we didn't even know if we were going to last. Long story. I keep saying that. I guess this is supposed to be a thing about long story, but Aston was wanting to go to Charlotte, and I was actually looking at going to Columbia. And we knew that we were going to separate and go different ways. And so North Greenville was like a really good opportunity for me to be close to home, but also closer to Charlotte. And Aston actually decided not to go to Charlotte, partially because it cost like $50,000 a year for her to go to culinary school in Charlotte. So she just went to a local community college in the area. And so that was all great and fine. So we stayed together. College went through. I was working at a Staples for the little bit of college where I was selling computers. I was actually like on the floor selling laptops and computers and plans and setting them up for service, and still connected to technology, just in a completely different opportunity. They knew my skills and what I knew, and they're like, okay, you can obviously sell computers. You know, a monkey could probably do that in some ways, but I had to be that person for them. And it was great. I loved that job. And to this day, I probably miss the working culture of that Staples, truthfully. Either way, I started teaching private lessons, opened up my own studio, and that continued for a lot of years with me working with private students on music instruments. And so out of all of that comes junior year of college. Again, junior year. And I was like, you know what? It's time to finalize this. I've been with her for this long. It's time to finalize it. I'm going to propose to her. And I had sat her down one day, and I was like, what kind of ring would you consider? I mean, she kind of knew it was coming. I knew it was coming. I was 20, and Aston was like telling me all this stuff. And so I went to the jewelry store, found the ring, refinanced my truck. Saying that now sounds so stupid, but I refied my truck to be able to afford an engagement ring set, an engagement ring plus a band. Bought it, took it home, hid it. And I'd asked Aston, I was like, or the conversation came up with someone else, and she was like, oh my gosh, what kind of wedding ring would you like? And she's like, let me show you. And so she pulls up the website where I had gotten the ring and was like looking at all these rings, and she lands on, you can't make this up because it's too good. She lands on the ring that I pick, and I'm literally sweating. I was like, she's found this freaking ring at my house. And so I was like, okay, so the jig is up. So I almost like ousted myself. But then obviously she was saying things that meant that she hadn't found it. It was like, I was okay. I was okay. But she found that ring, and she goes, oh my God, I love this ring. And it sounds so cheesy and corny and like whatever you call that cinema movie crap, romantic. But the truth is, that was so true. And so I was like, okay, cool. That sounds awesome. A month later, proposed to her. And 6 months later, or about a year later, we were married. And I was 21 when we got married. We were young, but we had started dating when we were 16, and that was 5 years later. So we were married at 21. I wasn't even out of college yet. Finished my student teaching in the spring, and then I had my first teaching job in a very, not small because it was a big district, but kind of just a smaller orchestra program. It was very much Title I. And if you're one of my previous students, and actually a lot of my previous students know I have this channel. If you're one of my previous students and you were in Lawrence, and like I helped you in that area, I just have to say, if it wasn't for you, I probably would have just given up on music. Not only was the area just low socioeconomically, but they were just low in comparison to other districts on most things. But they had a passion for something that just ignited me to say, you know what? It matters. It matters what these kids want. It matters what their parents want, and it matters what everything wants. Their goals shouldn't be limited by their location. And I just thought, this is such a huge understanding that these people in this area have, that all is the same, but because I'm coming in it from an outside perspective, I just didn't understand it. And so I taught in that district for 3 years, and I taught at every single middle school and high school. I started programs at middle schools where they didn't even have programs because I had a lot of passion there. And honestly, if it wasn't for one meeting, I would probably have still been teaching there. We probably wouldn't have moved. We probably would still be there. But my third year teaching, I went to the principal's office, and the principal sat down. This principal's not even teaching at that school anymore, so don't like go roast or anything. Not that you would, because you're an awesome community, but sat down in that principal's office, and I looked at her and I said, look, I want to be full-time at this high school. I have more than enough students who have recruited and who want to be in my class next year. Showed her the numbers, showed her the, the analytics of, how it could work. And I was like, all they need to do is hire a specific person to take my other middle school classes, and I can be here and continue to grow the program. And she said to me, and I'll never forget it, she looked at me and she says, well, Brandon, I don't think we'll even have a strings program next year. And my heart sunk. I had invested everything into those kids. Late nights, overnights, tears, literal blood in classrooms. Middle schoolers are violent. That's all I have to say. And I'm not talking about like, oh my God, they stabbed me, but like musical chairs was musical chairs, bro. Like, but anyway, it was devastating. And so I looked at her and I said, well, then I hope you know that this means I'll be looking for another position, and you can take this as my notice. And within about a couple of weeks, I had an interview at my new district, and I had taken that job. And that was hard to say goodbye to those kids. I had basically 3 years of time with some really awesome students. Not only did they pour into me the passion that I probably am still using to this day, and that understanding of that your location and who you are shouldn't define your future. And it was very evident. Some of my best musicians that I'd ever taught, and I taught for over 10 years in the public school system and over 14 years private lessons. Some of my best students were in that area. And because of their age and because of their area and their level, they couldn't pay for the trips to get them to like expensive competitions and stuff. I was doing good just to get them to like a local amusement park, much less let's get them to like auditions on the other side of town. So, and so that, I hated that had to be the ending of there. And the truth was the program didn't end. It actually went on. And the person who took over my job, I ended up, had a huge respect for him. He was able to stand up to the principal, and she eventually had left anyway, because it wasn't the first thing that she had done that was kind of questionable. And so out of that, we had decided to pivot. And so I moved to a new area. And I started teaching at a school. I've worn the shirt on videos and on stream, so it's like it's no secret about where I taught. And you can honestly Google my name and find it. So there's no holding any of that back. So I went to teach it in Landrum, and honestly, the next 7 years of my life in Landrum, I think helped me grow, helped me mature, helped me find who I was and what I could be as a mentor. And then also taught me that I had more in me than what I was giving. And so in 2015, I decided we left Lawrence, and I went up to Landrum and started teaching up there. I was teaching music. I was teaching orchestra at a middle school and a high school. And it was a glorious time I had. It was in a more affluent area. I had kids going to like upper performances. Felt like as the teacher, I was getting recognition for the talents that I had. And I didn't feel like this person teaching in a county that just was low, even though the passion was there. I was teaching here, these kids, some of them had everything handed to them. They didn't understand like that struggle and things that I had to see every day in Lawrence, like the constant drug and gun checks and the drug dogs, and that it was, if there was a fight in the building, that was the experience of a year. Like, but in Lawrence, it was like a fight every day. And so I pivoted, and it was a completely different culture shock. It was, how do I love on kids who in some way have never had to experience adversity? Whereas I was only teaching kids who only experienced adversity. And if they hadn't, they was very soon going to be in front of them. They were either shielded from it, or they were coming from an area that it would eventually hit them, if that makes sense. And so I pivoted, and we went there, and all this time, you know, let me just make sure I like slip in the gaming stuff or whatever, but I had like got an Xbox One, and now I was playing Destiny 2. That was my game all the way through this thing. Whenever it came out, that was my game. Destiny 2 all the way through Xbox One, loved it. And that's why this channel, if you go back, I think I have them on a playlist on my channel page at the very bottom. It actually says like Destiny 2 videos. That was the birth of this channel. That's why the channel is still called my gamer tag, because that was what this channel was to start off with, was a gaming channel. So I'm burping in the microphone. It's like 8:45 at night. I even brought like a Dr. Pepper, but I figured that would make something worse. Let me burp into the mic a little bit more. Anyway. And so, so I started teaching there, and a couple of years in, this was a pivotal moment. Well, hold on. A pivotal moment for me then was for like me making connections with kids, but all the while this was happening, transition from Lawrence to Landrum, I had a constant, and that was actually a church that I was working at. And I've never said my like political affiliation. I've never said my like religious affiliation. I've never said any of those things publicly. I hold those things close to chest because I don't want people to get, people are so polarizing about the smallest things. But the truth is, I'm about to tell you a bunch of things, and you're going to be like, oh my gosh, that means that he's blah, blah, blah. And you're going to assume who I am. Let me just tell you, nothing I'm about to tell you is going to tell you who I am as a person and make you assume who I am. And I'm going to explain that in a moment. So don't jump to conclusions. Trust me. And so I was teaching at this church, and I was the associate worship person, music associate, not a pastor or anything. I was just there basically because I knew music, I could conduct, and I could lead an orchestra and a choir if I had to, while the music pastor could take care of all the other stuff. And so every Wednesday I would lead an orchestra rehearsal and then also a praise band. And we're not talking about a small church. We're talking about in the area. It was one of the largest churches, like 2,000 people plus members on Sunday. We had 100+ person choir. And at the height of our orchestra, we were like 40 people on stage. And those were probably the most memorable times of making music, because, and it has nothing to do with, I mean, the making of music and the craft of making music was so powerful on that stage because everyone was just feeling passion rather than it having some kind of ulterior motive. I needed a grade, trying to do this. It was just people on stage with their craft and doing what they love. And having someone, me, being able to say, all of you are capable. And so those were some times that really impacted me. And we had some drama. Every church has drama. And honestly, some of the dumbest drama I had to deal with was people thinking that their status or who they were meant they required specific things. And because of who I was and everything I had grown up with, all I thought was, you and your status does not define what you deserve. And so I didn't take any like sympathy with that. I was young. I took that job when I was 21. I was just fresh out of college. And so I worked 2 jobs. I was a teacher and I worked at that church. And I did that for a long time. I think it was almost 6 or 7 years I worked at that church, and we grew it into something that was absolutely beautiful. And I really miss making music on that stage, that platform. But one thing that kind of pivoted that was there was a new music pastor who came in, And the previous music pastor, who I still have a good relationship with, he had left, and there's a whole long story, and I'm not going to spill his beans, but drama happened. He left. The new person who came in was just a completely different vision. And not that I have any kind of disrespect for that person, but it was just not where I was at. In the year from where he came in to where I was and deciding where I should leave, my entire orchestra was essentially just disseminated. And it was because every Sunday it was, they can't play this Sunday, they can't do this, we have special piece, we have this, we have that, don't put them on stage. And it was just not happy with the product that was being produced. And it killed me. Because once again, it was about status. And not about where, and it was about what they felt like they deserved. It was almost like they deserved perfection, which is so hypocritical. Because perfection is not what you can achieve anyway, but it was how it was presented. So stupid. But long story short, my orchestra was just destroyed. And oh man, I went into this video saying I wasn't going to cry, but I had some long memories. I had kids who grew up in that orchestra. I had a kid who went from being probably one of the greenest, and that means like the lowest, like horn players. And his dad was a fantastic horn player, but he went from like the lowest horn player into, by the time I was leaving, was like not only one of like the top selected horn players in the entire state, but was one of the top selected vocalists in the entire state. And he's actually at like, oh my God, I just got an invite to his concert, and he's just killing it. I think he's going for his master's degree now. And I got to see that growth. And it wasn't because he was owed anything. It was just because he was using his passion. And his dad didn't give him anything other than, I want you to be there on Sundays and be a part of this. And I think that had a huge impact. And it was one of many stories, many stories. I had a trumpet player who was like it was a 73-year-old man who came in, and I'll never forget. He came to me and he was like, hey, he was in like he owned a business, a porcelain business. And he was like, I haven't played a trumpet in forever. And he was like, I want to give back. What could I do? You know? And I said, you know what you could do? Come be in the orchestra. Sorry, my monitor's cut off. I'm going to hit the thing so they pop up. Look at that. There we go. And I said, come be in the orchestra. He's like, I've never played in like 40 years. How am I going to remember anything? And I was like, pull out a horn. Let's do it. And so he pulled his horn out, and it was pretty rough for a little bit. And then all of a sudden it was gorgeous. And I think he shocked himself, and I think I was shocked too. And it was magical. Magical is the best word. To see his talent just boom, he thought he had lost it. And I was just so excited for him. And so he became one of my best trumpet players on stage. And I don't think he's playing anymore. Because when I left in 2017, when I left that church, this was right about the same time of the pivot in school too. It was about 2017 when I left that church. It was on a Wednesday, and I went to orchestra rehearsal that night. And I looked at him and I said, guys, tonight's the last night. And it was a very heartfelt moment. And I don't know if anyone from that church watches this. I don't think they have any interest in gaming or socials or stuff. But if you were a part of that church, I just need you to know that I hate that my leaving that church heavily impacted your involvement. Because when I left, I got so many phone calls that we're not playing anymore. We're not on church. We're not even rehearsing. And they tried to bring something back, and I don't know. I think they also brought me back for that Christmas and paid me an inordinate amount of money to come play for them. And it just felt fake, and it just felt wrong. And all of the problems that I was having up until that point, it just didn't make sense. You know, I felt like, again, I was being shown that status and position mattered more than passion and opportunity. And it just blew me away. And that could be shown in this, like, I was there for that long, and I even asked, can I be full-time? And I was going to consider ministry full-time. And I was told, you know what, eventually we'll make this associate role a full-time role. And I was like, you know what, that's awesome. And so I held on to that. And the moment that I left, the piano player that was there, who I also have a huge respect for, by the way, the piano player that was there basically had to take over my job, and they made him full-time, like within a month. And I can't. They made him full-time in about a month, and then basically killed the program that I had spent 7 years to grow, and just brushed it away. Now, the people who were like the praise team members who were on stage every Sunday, they got to continue to play and get the recognition. But these like horn players, yeah, they never saw the platform in a way like they were seeing it. And it kills me to even think about it. And so when I found out that I had basically failed a large group of people, I had that moment where I was like, okay, now I have all this time. What do I do with it? All the while I'm still at this church, Aston actually quit her job. I worked both of those jobs and an extra little piece of private teaching and stuff. And I worked all the way through so that she could finish her second degree. And now she's a teacher, by the way. She's actually finishing her master's degree and graduates in another week, like from Columbia, USC Columbia. Sorry, it was a hiccup. And I'm so proud of her. But that was the least I could do to help her achieve her goals and dreams, was to continue doing that. And it was fine. It was a lot of time. It was a lot of time invested in something that I couldn't do anymore. I was so tired of seeing hypocritical behavior and status being chosen over passion and talent. And status mattered more. Appearance mattered more. And that hurt. And I couldn't do that anymore. I couldn't facilitate that because I had to stand beside this person and say that this is right. Couldn't do that anymore. So anyway, about the same time, 2017, I'm still teaching in the high school and the middle school. And I had the unique opportunity to pivot and change what I was doing. I actually met up with the course director who was doing the same thing, who is a fantastic individual. Oh my gosh, he is such a great friend. But he and I decided to split our jobs, and the district went with it. And so I decided to teach high school course and orchestra. Also a media class. That's very important. Let me tell you about that in a second. A media class at the high school. And he took middle school course and orchestra. He was actually a band guy, made chorus, and now teaching strings. And then, kind of foreshadowing to the future, he actually fell in love with strings, and he actually replaced my job that I left this spring. And so I have a huge respect for him. But anyway, out of that, let's talk about what that really means for what we're talking about right now. So we pivoted, and now I'm working at the high school. And this is kind of my whole job, is to be at the high school. But I needed a third class. And so there was this media arts class that was kind of presented. And there was some new standards to the district, and no one had really talked about it. There was only one school that really had a media arts class. And before you ask what that is, it's essentially a class where I teach kids anything about media. You could basically develop a curriculum about anything and call it media arts. And so with my skill set and the things that I had done I had learned not only through working at that church and doing media through like audio mastering and stuff by helping out sound engineers and teaching them how to do it, but also the video side of things and helping them out on the video department, understanding and learning the stuff that I needed to, not only with being a teacher, but also with working in that ministry. And so I pivoted and did a video-centric media arts class. And so I started teaching kids every single day. Here's how you create a compelling video Here's how you edit it. Here's how you do audio mastery. Here's how you do microphone. Here's how you do everything. Let's read about what is a soundboard? What is a light board? How do you set up a stage, direct boxes, you know, set up for performances, live events? How do you mix? And it was very much like a inch thick, mile wide curriculum that covered everything to give them like a touch of the world. And then if they enjoyed it, they could jump into that as a passion. And it was just an elective. There wasn't anything crazy. You know, I wasn't expecting to have a huge amount of turnout. And honestly, I thought I had made it uncompelling enough that it wouldn't grow. Man, was I wrong. So we jump into that next year, which is my first time being full-time at the high school and not having to travel school. So I was so excited. And at the same time, the theater teacher, also full-time at the high school, I didn't think I was having to travel at all. Gosh, I can't think back that far. But anyway, we were both at the high school at the time. So we actually met up very early on in the semester. I think actually before the semester started, and she came up to me and she said, "Hey, I want to do a musical in this semester, which is the fall." And it was actually the fall of 2018, I believe it was. She said, "I want to do a musical this fall. Can you do music for it?" And I'd just gotten out of worship stuff. My evenings were open. And I had realized to myself that, yeah, I should. Not only could I reach my goal of helping people where they are, but also showing their passion and improving that and giving them an opportunity, because I didn't even know we were doing musicals. And I was like, you know what? Yes. And that one yes turned into so many other things. And so that school year started and we did that musical, and it was magical. Very first musical we did, I believe it was Mary Poppins. I feel like it was Mary Poppins. I might be wrong, but I'm almost certain it was Mary Poppins. I think it was. The music was hard. We had a very green, very, very green group of kids, but a very loving group of kids. And it was also my first year teaching chorus. So I had basically forced all of my chorus kids to audition and to become a part of it. So not only was I seeing my chorus kids after school every single day until 5, 6, 7 o'clock, I was also seeing them in the classroom or chorus. And so I got really comfortable and close with these kids to the point where I knew parents would call me and invite me to things that I didn't expect that I would be invited to, because I had created such a close relationship with the families. And so I had loved making and learning how I could be the same impact in this community that I was teaching in at Landrum that I was in Lawrence. I finally found my place where I had found that passion that I was in Lawrence. I found my place in Landrum, and it was through that musical. And so I found my run. So I ran with it, and I jumped all in. We did the musical. You know, we ran sound. I taught kids how to do sound and the technical stuff. I did all the music. The performances were great. I was so proud of the kids. It was just a fantastic experience. And it was probably one of the most, that first night that we closed was probably one of the most magical moments ever, because I got to see the product from beginning to end, what I helped create alongside our theater director, and to see her also grow and shape herself and build her program. You know, she and I became really close colleagues. And so I was really excited to see how that program grew. So that finished, come around the spring, no musical. How do I continue to help? So all of those kids joined my choir. So my choir went from 11, 12 kids to upwards of 30 in a semester. It was nuts, honestly, just crazy. So because of that, it just jump-started my chorus program. But then this was semester of media arts, and I had basically zero planned media arts. Those of you who are in that class, Wyatt, who edited for this channel for about 5-6 months was in that original class. He was one of my students. And Wyatt, it's obvious now that you've known me for so long. He actually works for me still at my new job at the real estate company. He's my editor for the real estate company and works as my assistant. Anyway, it's kind of crazy, but what I was saying was, what you need to realize is I flew by the seat of my pants. I had basically planned nada because I had sold this curriculum to the district and told them that this is what I'm going to do. It's not that I wasn't planned. I just didn't have every daily objective done. So it actually worked out even better. And I'll explain why. But, you know, I basically created this curriculum, handed it to the district, and the district goes, "Oh, look how awesome this is. Look at the curriculum we made." The district, by the way. Look at the curriculum we made. Brought in the other high school director from the other high school in the district. And they basically made it sound like it was all their idea. I can't. To this day, it's been one of the biggest stupids that I've ever had to be a part of. But when I had to sit in that meeting and basically say nothing to them, saying that all of my ideas was the district's ideas and also this other director's ideas, I've never sat back and just waited long enough. And oh my God, that was the dumbest thing, because I had to watch people lie for their status again, because they felt like it was necessary, that they were going to be the people that made that decision. And because they made that decision, it should be their baby to love. I can't. I just can't. And so I let it slide, because I knew when it came around to having that class, they would ask me questions and I wouldn't help them. And I didn't. Oh man, I'm such an ass. But yeah, so that class started. It was like 15, 20 kids. Seniors all the way to freshmen. None of them knew what they were getting into. Half of them got thrown into the class because they didn't sign up for their schedules. So a large majority of the kids in that room didn't want to be in that room. But by the end of that semester, I can't speak for every kid because I just can't. But by the end of that semester, that media arts class was special. It was the most open and honest forum I had ever seen. It was a group full of students who came to me, and I will say this, and I will defend it. They came to me as children and left as adults, because we had conversations that you didn't want to have. And honestly, we spent more time learning about life than we did about anything media. Now, that doesn't mean we didn't cover media, but I quickly figured out that this was now the opportunity that I could love on a brand new subset of students that was not music, that was not theater, and that I could be able to instill passion and opportunity in kids that are overlooked every single day. Because the kids who didn't sign up for their schedule or were put in that class were most of the time the kids failing other classes or the kids not performing where they should be. So their class schedules get moved around, and I'm just the happy elective that was open. And so at the end of that classroom, we all knew who each other were and where we stood. We had conversations. We had politics conversations, even though you're not supposed to, but who's going to fire me from the school district now? I don't work there. But we had politics conversations. We had conversations about perceptions of religion, and not necessarily religious conversations, but like the impact of religion on the world. And in a media aspect, how that impacts, how facts are given. And so in most of these conversations, I didn't even start. I just let them facilitate in the room. And then I kind of kept things and topics in a bottle that I knew were a line where we couldn't really cross. And so we had a few students that just would kind of challenge the status quo every day. And so we would do things like write a fake news story. And kids would push it right to the line, but we were comfortable enough to ask, like, is this too far? And so at the end of that classroom, we had an assignment. They had a 10-minute video that they had to create, completely educational, completely original, couldn't use anything else. And that was a true level playing field of ability, passion, and opportunity, which was huge for me. Status didn't make you a better content creator. Your money didn't make you a better content creator, because they all had equal level playing fields. They all had to edit on my machines, do it in my room. I was the constant. And from that, it made things, it removed a lot of stigma and just leveled things out for people. And so this was huge. And at the end of that semester, I was like, okay, cool. No one wants to take this class again, because technically a few kids failed because they didn't turn in their final project, et cetera, right? I was so wrong. The next year comes around. I went from 1 media class to 3 media classes. And it was because they had to literally start turning kids away. And it started encroaching on my other classes. My other classes, orchestra and chorus, were losing numbers because they wanted to be in this media class. Why? Not because the media content was good, because we were just talking about like how to edit a video in WeVideo and how to do audio in Audacity or GarageBand. It wasn't anything revolutionizing. The kids already knew what it was. I knew that they already knew the concepts mostly, but I used it as a vehicle to make them start being passionate about something. So I made them lock onto a subject early on. Like, you're a golf player, you love golf. Do you want to be a golf player when you grow up? Cool. All your content's going to be golf. And so they were able to figure out, is this a passion that I love? And most of the time, what I saw really by the end of the semester, kids would change project titles, because you had to basically choose your final project title and like a whole preview at the beginning of the semester. And they would want to shift it about halfway through because they realized that they weren't really that passionate about it. And so I think I really created an opportunity for kids to learn who they were quickly. Anyway, 3 classes. Started killing my other programs. This became a problem. We'll get into that in a minute, but out of all of that, we started doing other musicals. You know, I helped with straight plays like Radium Girls. We did was fantastic. You know, we did things, we did High School Musical, the musical, so many things. Oh my gosh. The musicals like were a way that I got to really connect with some students. And my chorus class, now that I've opened up in media arts and in the theater, my music classes started becoming those open kind of opportunities to have good discussion. We still did music, but this was time where my classroom became the safe place for a lot of kids in that building. And so most of the kids joined my classes, not because that they were talented or wanted to be there. They just knew that I was going to give them the honest opinion of who they were, tell them the truth, but also protect them in the best ways that I knew how. And that was to be there for them and give them an ear to talk. My room became a safe place. And for more than just music and discussions, but I started again recognizing a problem. And in that community, this is going back to that conversation earlier where I said you don't need to assume somebody's like feelings and emotions and drive and who they are as a person and political affiliation and religious affiliation just because of the things that they're a part of. Because very much what I'm about to tell you is probably going to be the most defining piece of figuring out who I am and where I stand. So it's about this time COVID was about to hit. This is like 2018, 2019, that year. Okay. And throughout all of this, we can go through the COVID stuff, and that's a whole nother beast. But you know, this was also the year where a lot of things shifted, because the year that comes up is the year that defined the start of this channel and where we are today. And a lot of things occurred that year. A lot of very heartfelt, broken things occurred that year that really make me upset. But I digress. What became up of that year, this is the year before COVID. So COVID was 2019. This is like coming into that year coming in. I might have said the wrong year earlier. It was probably 2016, 2017. I don't know. But anyway, this next year is the year that defines it. So this is like fall 2017. This is after Mary Poppins and all of that. I get to the spring and I recognize in my media arts class, there are a bunch of kids who are gamers who literally found me on Xbox. I've teased my gamer tag at this point, and a bunch of these kids found me and they're like, oh my God, so-and-so's gamer tag, Brandon's gamer tag, but I was Mr. Leonard to them, is blah, 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 blah. And so it got spread around the school, and all of my previous kids, plus kids I've never taught, started following me on social media and also following me on Xbox. And I never followed any of them back initially because I was like, I don't want to cross this barrier. I don't want to play with my kids. And it wasn't anything like the school district said you shouldn't. They didn't care. I'd actually asked permission. And so I was like, what should I do with this? How can I impact this? I have so many kids interested in me because I'm a gamer. How can I pivot on this? And so one of my kids came up to me and said, you know what this school needs? An esports program. And I was like, esports program? And I thought about that and I was like, how do you create an esports program? There wasn't an esports program in our entire state. And I'm not joking. South Carolina didn't have a single esports program in the public schools. None. Not one. Or I said, how do I start an esports program? I had no one to call, had no background. So I started doing research, and I got a bunch of these students who were very interested in it. It was maybe like 10 people, and we got them all into like a small community. We made a Discord at that time, and I had never done Discord ever. Now, granted, I was an Xbox player. I'd never had no reason to do Discord, but I did Discord. And so I jumped in and we started doing like these little off tournaments on CSGO and Rocket League and Rainbow Six and just I was just hosting this stuff. I wasn't streaming or anything like that. It was just like local recordings and stuff. And I think I still have all of that archived to where you can see all of that. But anyway, some of those tournaments are on this channel and are still, I don't think they're live. They're unlisted. You can go find them. I think they're linked on the channel. But anyway, so at this time that was happening, I said, you know what, let's jump all in. So I went to the principal, I got approval, and they were like, yes. And so I set up a date, promoted it all over the building and said, if you want to be a part of an esports program, you can do this, blah, 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 blah. And I made rules, very specific rules and a handbook, and got it approved by everyone, literally everyone, because I didn't want to step on toes. And it was like, if you want to be a part of esports, this is the schedule we meet. We were going to meet one day a week because the other days were like tournament days. We didn't have any equipment on campus. I couldn't do that because we couldn't connect to the internet. So everything was, for you to participate, you had to have the equipment yourself and you had to connect on those teams at home. And so every game was at 5 o'clock and every day had different games. So, and you could be a part of different categories. And so we did the HSEO, which is the High School Esports League. I think they're called something else now, but we did the High School Esports League. We met on Mondays. We did character building, team building, and connection. That was my goal, was to make sure we broke down barriers, talk about proper sports etiquette, and to try to make it a learning experience. And so I had my kickoff meeting. This was on it was like a Thursday afternoon, and I intentionally put it on a game night for kids so that one of the rules was that if you were a part of a sport, you couldn't be a part of the esports program because I didn't want to pull you from an active sport. And that was because I used to be an athlete. I didn't want to do that to coaches. I felt like that was wrong. And there were 600 kids in my school. Okay. So when I say that 67 kids showed up to my meeting and I had over 10% of the entire school population in my course room, which was like rated for 50 people, and I had 67 in there, it was ridiculous. And no one thought it was serious enough. I don't even think principals even showed up. No one showed up. It was just me in the room and 67 kids. And you would think, oh my gosh, that's going to be like crazy. No, whatever. They all knew who I was. It was either former students or people that were invited because they were friends of former students and they had told them about who I was. And it was this huge thing of respect. I mean, sure, was it all gamer talk and like roasting people? I mean, yeah, but it was a huge thing of respect. When I spoke, they listened, and it was this huge opportunity to grow. And so looking at all these kids, I told them, here's the requirements, here's what you're doing. And then I later found out that I think a couple of teams had to forfeit playing that night because their star players were in my room for esports league meeting. Oh man, life is crazy sometimes, but teams had to forfeit that night because I had their star players in my room and they were apparently calling the kids and the kids are silencing their phones. Now, did I agree with this? No. But did it show how much impact the opportunity of esports was going to have on that school? Heck yeah. I had more kids in that room than I did like 3 of the varsity teams that played that entire year, including football. I even had like the star quarterback in my room. It was ridiculous. And so they were all like, yeah, I want to compete, blah, blah, blah. By the next week, which was our follow-up meeting, where they had to bring the paper signed and actually a check for the registration fee. They had to pay, I think, $25. And some kids were like, I can't afford it. The school had already agreed to like spot a few kids, but I couldn't promote it. So if they told me that they had an issue with it, I was just gonna be like, you know what, we got you, but don't tell everyone else. And so it was actually really good. A lot of kids were able to jump in. And so with that, I think we ended up with like 42 or 43 kids. We were over 40 kids. Still a huge number, still larger than the entire football team. And I still had people who quit their sport to be on this esports team. And so we started meeting and we had our first week. And so there were games like CSGO, Rainbow Six, Rocket League, Dragon Ball Fighter Z. It was just every kind of game you could choose from. You could jump in, Super Smash Brothers, and you competed. You basically connected with someone around the world. You both recorded your match, recorded your entries. You went on to the next round. And so I made this huge standings thing, printed out the names of the teams and whoever they were, and put it outside my door. And every week I would mark the wins and the losses, and we were doing good. Like we were going to make it. I don't know if we were going to win because we were still trying to learn like the system, but we were doing good. We had a couple of teams that were just on fire, but there was a lot of drama because I had some code of conduct things. So a few kids got kicked out because they were toxic. But the truth was, what really cemented how important this was, it was never about gaming. Gaming was the medium to connect. But I was taking kids who were failing, literally failing classes, to bring their grade up to a C, which was my requirement, just like an athlete was in the building. They brought up their grade to a C to compete. And if their grade wasn't a C, I benched them. And if they didn't have enough players, they forfeited. And so it was crazy seeing these kids who normally would fail going for help and even coming to me for like, can you help me with your algebra? Like, I was good with math, but bro, I haven't been in school for algebra in years. Like, go to your teacher. And so these teachers would email me and be like, my worst students are becoming my most attentive students. And it was mind blowing for the school. Honestly, it was like the coaches and the PE staff and all of those people hated me. Academics loved it because their kids were working. The kids that were overlooked, that no one wanted to pay attention to, they were the cut-ups of the class. They were awful, students, you know, they slept through class. Were now the students paying attention, doing what they needed to do so that they could perform in esports. Why? Because of the scholarship opportunities and the scouts that were there. And these were kids that were like, this is my chance to make gaming a career. And if we got into like the finals and stuff, scouts from colleges would be there to offer scholarships. And I pitched this, and it was great. We were 6 weeks in. We were on week 6, and I get a call. I think it was about an hour before the end of school. And right at the end of school is when I was having my Monday meetings. Like, school ended, kids were in my room in 5 minutes. We were meeting until 5 o'clock. No consoles, no gaming happening on campus. Let me just stress that. Nothing happening on campus. Everything was off campus. I was just facilitating. And so I got a call from the principal, and I have a huge respect for him. He's still at the school. And this wasn't his decision at all. He calls me and he said, hey, I need you to hold off any games that you perform in this week. And I was like, why? I said, did we do something wrong? Like, did a kid do something wrong? Is this in the news? And he was like, I'll tell you about it later. I need you to hold off everything to do with esports, and I'll let you know. We'll talk today after school. And he asked me, he said, when do you meet? I said, today. And he said, cancel that meeting. Schedule it for a later date. I need to meet with you. And I was like, okay, so who did I make mad? Who did I piss off, really? What, I hate to say it, but what athletic program did I piss off? Because I did have star players on the esports team. I guess I should have seen it coming, but so I go to meet with them, and the conversation is, we've been asked by the district to, let me hit the space bar. It said, we've been asked by the district office to stop esports. And I asked that was exactly how he said it. And I was like, why? And before I even let him finish the why, I told him everything about it. I'm helping kids that no one pays attention to. I'm bringing their grades up. I'm giving them scholarship opportunities when they most likely would have ended up at lower tier paying jobs and not even going to college or even pursuing some kind of career path. Not that that's a bad thing. Those of you who didn't, as a teacher, you want the best for your kids. And I wanted to give them opportunity. And I said, I'm giving them an opportunity with this. And also background for this, the principal, his son was going to be a part of the esports program the next year. And he was already asking me about what esports computer he should buy for his kid. Like, that's how supportive he was. And so he was like, it came from the district office, has something to do with being a club, and we can't go through with it. And I was like, okay. He said, all I can tell you is let's talk about it tomorrow. Let me get some more information. But for now, hold off on everything, be calm about it, and figure out a way to tell your team to be relaxed and chill until I can get you more information. Yeah, that went over like a flipping dead horse. Like, how am I supposed to tell a group of 43 kids, hey, we're not meeting today, and every one of your games that you've practiced for and scrimmaged all weekend in VCs with me, you can't perform in this week, you have to forfeit them all. You be in my shoes when I had to tell 43 kids, hey, your passion that you've been working on, by the way, we're going to put a pause on it. And so the next day I went and met with him. And I said, you better tell me you got good news. Tell me it's a misunderstanding. This is what I've had to deal with for the last 24 hours. Not even 24 hours, like 12 hours. I was up till like 3 a.m. in voice chats with kids. Kids crying because they knew it was coming. I knew it was coming. And they didn't care. They didn't care. Not one bit. Not a single bit. And so he told me it was a district office decision that they can't get behind video gaming. That it's the optics. That was literally the word. The optics of video gaming. We can't get behind that. And the decision was basically that I couldn't become a full-fledged club, that being a club, you had to be approved by the district office. And that even though I had done all of the approvals that I was told that I had to do, that didn't matter. I got shut down. And so he told me, we're done. Esports is over. We still had another 6 weeks left in the season and finals. And I already had colleges messaging me. I had to, the next day, we had a thing called Power Hour, which was basically a time in the middle of the day where you had lunch, but then you could go for like making up tests or hang out with your friends if you were in good grades, right? All of my kids were good grades because guess why? Esports. So I called a meeting, an emergency meeting for that day for Power Hour for the entire block. Told them to bring their food, even though I knew they wouldn't eat. Told them to bring their food. And the principal asked me, he said, should I be in the room? He says, do you want me to go with you and be a part of it? And I said, no. I said, I don't think that'll go over too well if you're there. I think he actually ended up in the room. Let's just say he eventually ended up in front of them to explain himself. But it wasn't his decision. But he had to act on behalf of the district, so he had to make it sound like his decision. So ultimately, it made him look like the bad guy, and it wasn't his fault. So I had to look in front of all of these kids and go, all of those passions, opportunity, and talents that you have that no one even knew you had. No one. No one cared about your gaming. No one thought about asking you. No one cared. All of those talents that you had, they're meaningless to the district. So because of that, we're going to cut this program. And we expect you to continue performing at the level that you've been currently performing at. Grade-wise, everything. And so I have a room full of teenagers who have a passion, who just got crapped on. And I couldn't do anything about it. And it killed me. It ruptured me. I didn't know how I could, I didn't even teach for like 3 days. I told chorus and orchestra that they're doing sectionals, and I just sat in my office and I just thought, what can I do? Because I've just realized that I was the problem. I facilitated the problem. I created an issue. I gave them hope, yanked it away. I was such an idiot. Or at least I thought I was. And I had kids come up to me like, bro, you didn't do anything wrong. You know, if it wasn't for you, we wouldn't even be in this position to have this problem. We would still be failing all of our classes and not realizing that we could do so much better with our grades. And the truth is, a lot of the kids who were doing good academically went back to their original ways. And the kids who were already doing great academically, they were never phased. And it went back to that. If you have status and all of that, you gained the acceptance. And so out of that, I was like, you know what? I can't do this. And so I said, you know what? We're going to like bump them. Let's do it ourselves. And so we did. Created a Discord, we created an esports Discord. I brought all the kids in who stuck around. It was like 20 something kids. And we did tournaments. We did like weekly tournaments that they trained for. And there was no like cash exchanged or prizes. It was merely just the opportunity to just perform. And it was for them really to practice. And then I told them about opportunities to get on freelance teams and to find other places. And those people ultimately became the beginning of this channel. They were my moderators, community Discord leaders. Those were the people who started the path of me learning that I had a passion about creating content through media arts, because apparently I could inspire people, to the fact that this year we went from 3 media classes to 4 media classes. And by the end of it, I think there was 5 media classes happening, not to mention an upper level media arts class that I had to teach with some of my top students. One of them being Wyatt. I keep bringing him up, but like, this is how much of a connection he and I have. You know, we did a thing where I was doing YouTube, and we would all upload to YouTube weekly and keep the exact same schedule and talk about our videos and script our videos and talk about how to make them better and how to improve. And it was just this huge content creation piece. And I knew that I was making a difference. Like, I found my place. And so when I made this channel, I made it on the platform of gaming, because I was like, here's how I can connect with people. That's like the way I can connect with these people. If they want to be whatever, I can connect with them on gaming. So I used education in gaming. I did like shooting tutorials and guides for like guns and which roles you should get and what is this better. And I did that for a year and quickly figured out that I sucked at it. Everyone was so nice. Man, your videos are so good. And I streamed and I uploaded videos. There was probably 120 videos on my channel in a year between streams and actual edited down video. And I learned so much in that year. And then it became summer right after COVID. This was like June. COVID was March, beginning of COVID. And then June happened, and I was like, you know what, I'm done. And I covered this in a video recently. You can go to hear the whole story, but I basically said, I'm done. I'm going to make a video that answers some of the solutions before I go on vacation or try to attempt to have a vacation through COVID, which didn't happen because of COVID. And I made a streaming tutorial about voice meter. And then I made one about a capture card, and I just threw them up there, just to have them up and like, oh, let's just, you know, whatever. And then 4 months later, I was monetized on YouTube. And then, you know, 2 years later, I'm at this point, 11.5K subs, you know, monetized, brand sponsorships, you know, it's crazy. And amongst all that time, I'm still doing musicals. I'm still doing, like, this is all on top of the same thing. So I was never like, let's go to our 8 to 5 and go home and be a happy little. No, I was working all the time, literally all the time, like morning to night, 1 a.m., 2 a.m., go to sleep for 4 or 5 hours, start it all back over, all while having a kid, by the way. And that was part of it. I'd made sure that I had time that was me spending time with my son. And when he went to sleep, my wife and I knew that that was going to be what it was. Aston would work on what she needed to work on, and then I would do content. And we understand, we have a very strong relationship. So we know where we stand. And so we know that that's what we are. Like, individuality defines who you are in a relationship. And if you don't see that and you define yourselves by each other, man, that's going to be a hard conversation later. So, but throughout all of this, I was still doing like musicals and classes and making connections, and it all led up to my final year of teaching. And that was this past year. Actually, I'm making this in December, and I just left teaching back in June of this year, 2022, if you're watching this later. And I had toyed with the idea of leaving education for the last couple years. And my kids might not know this. So this is, if you're one of my students, which again, I have a lot of students who watch my videos. If you're watching this, I debated leaving education at the end of the first COVID year and this past year several times. And it wasn't because of you. Trust me, it wasn't because of you. Education took a twist, and it was very much, maybe I should do a dedicated video of like, I left teaching and here's why or something. I don't know, but education took a shift, and it again became about status in education. It was about who is the person who could have the best internet to make sure their grades were turned in. And then, you know, if they weren't able to do any of that, grade with grace. So everyone just got on the level playing field with grading. So now it just became, you know, well, who has blah more instead of this? And it was just a weird time in education, honestly. And everyone got so political, and it honestly just, that conversation was so difficult to have every single day. Because what you think you might only had a conversation with outside of where I was like once or twice, you know, every little bit, and every, you know, unless you were like seeking that conversation. But I was having these conversations because, again, my classroom was that safe space. Kids were coming in my room talking about, you know, where they stand politically, why COVID was fake, and all of just everything that you could imagine. I had to hear that every single day. And some teachers might say, well, I also heard it every single day, and that's fine. I'm just telling you about my experience. But in my classroom, where I made a safe place, and that was my number one priority, is for kids to feel safe in my room. I heard it constantly, and it became very taxing, because the people who felt like they won the arguments were the people who defined their status based upon their belief. And honestly, it just became laborious, not only to help people, but to be there every moment. And I'm not saying that it was taxing because I was of the job I was in. I'm saying that people took a change on how they viewed, you know, accountability, or all the things we talked about earlier, like ability and passion. All those things became so easy because they could just not have to worry about it. Everyone's grading with grace. No one, why would it matter? And then TikTok came around, and a lot of very controversial things started happening, and it became a very difficult thing to watch. And so let me preface this. This is kind of tying into that point of don't define who someone is. It was about this time that I started seeing a big push in the school system for something I just didn't agree with. And now, I'd always been a supporter, and I'd always been a person that was an ally and someone who helped and created a safe place for these group of people that felt like they didn't have a place. And so it started to become extremely disgusting this past year. We started the school year, and it's not going to be graphic, but some of you might not like what I'm about to say. And I personally don't care if you do or don't like it. If you don't like the content, you unsubscribe, that's fine. That's fine. I personally don't care. But there were kids walking down the hallway, walking behind students who identified with LGBTQ. Maybe not even like publicly have stated it. Maybe not even showing or appearing that they are a part of the community. But kids walking down the hallway and actively barking at them as they walked up the hallway. Like, how humiliating. I want you just to imagine that you're walking anywhere that's in public amongst your peers, and you have a group, and I'm not talking about like one or two problem students. I'm talking about a group of kids consistently barking at you because you identify differently than what they feel is right and true. Kids started skipping school. Kids started not showing up. Kids started failing because, once again, no one cared. And it was about status and who you were in that room, and not about ability or passion, opportunity, nothing. It disgusted me, and nothing was being done. And it was awful. And so, as someone who is a part of musicals every single year, you know, I was around this culture consistently, and I'm very much an ally and a supporter of these students and also the community, because you can be who you want to be. Who cares? Like, who cares? And if they care, they don't matter to you. Who cares? And why? We can get to a whole discussion, but it's idiotic to think. I just can't. I'm not. I'm gonna get hot. But the truth is, when it comes to these kids, I saw pain and I saw suffering, and no one was doing anything about it. So you know what happened? I went up to the principal. I sat down in his office, the exact same principal that nixed esports. And I sat down in his office and I said, "This is unbearable and disgusting and horrific and unbecoming of a school of our stature. I can't believe this is still a problem. When I still have kids who are getting out of class to go to the bathroom, who end up in my office crying because kids barked at them as they walked up the hallway, going to their next classroom. And now I have so-and-so student in my classroom who I'm trying to make sure they're going to be okay mentally and physically." It was a very hard year. And we fought a lot of issues. And we were very much, and when I say we, there was like a very small group of teachers, like me and the theater teacher and a couple of other teachers in the building were, you know, allies and supporters. And it was awful. And to see some of the teachers in the building who just didn't care, that their students are literally being bullied and humiliated in front of them, in the hallways, in front of the teachers, and they did nothing. It was disgusting. And when I asked about opportunities to solve the problem, let's create a GSTA. If you want to go research that, do that. Let's create a GSTA. Let's create an opportunity and an environment of safe individuals in this building and desensitize the terminology that they're weaponizing. And I think by that point, after I got approval months later, after I finally got approval for it, I was so done. I was drained. And the kids that we were so close to, who surrounded themselves around the teachers who loved on them, it had already taken it out of us. We were done. And so it was exhausting, because all we would do was attempt to help, and it was just smashed into a wall. Now this isn't a jab at like that principal, who also was very much someone who was trying to solve the problems in his school and was fighting red tape and everything. So like, love him. And he was trying to fight his own battles. So, I mean, that was disgusting. And that was too much. And the problem was I was spending more time in my classroom doing content that had nothing to do with the content I was supposed to be doing. Because, as I had created, was a safe space for kids, I spent more time teaching kids about answering kids' questions, not teaching them, because that's the truth. I was never going in with the expectation of teaching them these things. I would have the plan, start teaching the plan, and we still had concerts and projects and all that stuff. So don't get me wrong here. We still did curriculum, but like it was to the point where class was automated, but the conversations that were had were so deep in most cases because I never led them. Like the kids would bring them up and then they would have them amongst the room. And then, you know, I just became this facilitator. And I couldn't help them. I was being handicapped in helping them now. And I knew that if I stayed, I would still find happiness and joy and I would love these kids and I would still be able to do it. And still to this day, like I'm going to their chorus concert on Monday. But, you know, I'm still going to support and love them and still message several of the kids, you know, about musical stuff. Like, I don't know if I'll be able to turn that off just yet or ever. But when it comes to like, it was just hatred, pure hatred. And I just couldn't stand for it. And it seemed like every moment that I had to just take a step forward and try to be that defining person for them and find a central piece. Like GSTA was supposed to be the esports for that group, supposed to be the musical for this other group of kids, supposed to be orchestra for this group in Lawrence. Like when I started creating each of these opportunities for people, it just, once again, I felt held back and being able to be a beacon of light for kids. And it hurt me. And so what did I do? I very quickly started saying, you know, this is my last year. And so the conversation was quickly had and then immediately discussed as a no. Is my content full-time ready? Can I work with you guys every single day? And the truth is no. Like I could break down money, and if I told you like exactly how much I made from this channel, you would be like, man, that sounds so awesome. But I mean, when you have a wife and a kid and a mortgage and 2 cars and stuff like that, like that's the number's nowhere close. But I've shown you my YouTube analytics, but that's not all the money between brand sponsorships and other gigs and stuff. So one day I'll be a little bit more transparent with that. But I want to make sure I don't breach contract by saying it. So let's just say I'm close. Here's how you can figure it out. I'm close to making each year what a first-year teacher would make in their first year teaching as a bachelor's degree teacher. You can go research that. And that would be in the South Carolina area. That's close to what I'm making in content right now. But that's nowhere near enough to support my family. And so it was that spring, and I was like, what am I going to do? Do I pivot and go be a teacher in another district? Or do I try something else? You know, I've already done this teaching thing and it's great and I love it. And I love being able to make an impact on kids. What else could I do? Well, I have this huge skill set that I've grown for the last 3 years with you guys. You know, what can I do with that? So I started researching and I landed on things like, you know, creative director and and then jumping into something like marketing. And I was like, but do I have the skills to do that? And so I was like, okay, I'll take a couple courses. So I did like a Google Ads course and did a couple stuff. And I was like, you know what? I think this makes sense. And so out of a whim, this is, I mean, totally happenstance. I was sitting and applying to Indeed jobs almost every single day, like 30 or so applications a day. And those of you who say like, I apply every day, let me just tell you, I had a bachelor's degree, half of a master's degree done, 10 years of education experience and specialized instructional stuff. Still applied for weeks 30 plus applications a day. I don't want to hear that, you know, I applied once a day and haven't found a job. So stupid. Anyway, out of the blue, I get a phone call, and or no, I get an email from this person, and it was like, "Hey, saw your application. Can you come in for an interview like tomorrow?" It was quick, like crazy quick, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm a teacher. Can we do 4 o'clock? Sure. See you then." I didn't even know what job I was applying to. I didn't even know which application it was. But the truth was, when I went back and looked, it was for a marketing job. One that I had actually thought was amazing just because A, it was close to home. B, it was doing the things that I wanted to do, which was being a content creator. And then C, it was making sure that I had the ability to scale within that. And I was like, yo, this looks great. And so I met with her, and the interview went fantastic. And I don't think I could have done that interview. I don't think I could have done that interview any better than I did, truthfully. Oh no, the monitor went off. I don't think I could have done it better. And so, she was awesome, met the staff, and we came to a decision. This was like in April. Like, I wasn't available until June. I was still under contract, and I could have broke my contract, but I had too much invested in my students. I wouldn't have stayed. It's hard to say what I'm about to say, but I wouldn't have stayed in education for those last 2 months because of education. I stayed because of my kids. And I say that, you might say, well, you mean your kids? Like, they're not your kids. I spent more time with them than most of their parents spent each week. Like, I very much, some of them, I saw them more than their parents. So yes, I felt very much a paternal connection to them, whether they wanted to or not. You know, I wasn't like overbearing or anything, but like the point of, like, I saw them grow up. I taught there for 7 years. I saw some of the kids when I started them in orchestra in like 6th grade, all the way until I saw them graduate and start college before I left that school. Like, I knew them that long and had them every year in my classroom. That was the connections that I had. Those were the family connections that I had. And I couldn't do it to my kids. So we stayed. It was emotional, but I explained it to them very well. Like, this decision is not because of you. This decision is because I'm wanting to find my place and passion. And I have a unique opportunity to do that through content, working for a company, doing content, and doing something that I feel like I can grow into. And I said, this is an opportunity of a lifetime. My license never expires. Well, it expires, but I can always renew my teaching license and come back to education. But this opportunity might not come again. And through a lot of tears from me as well as the kids, you know, we were on good terms. And I think they resonated with I had an opportunity. And it was almost every person that I talked to about this, it was very much like, we wouldn't have the opportunities that we have without you. So why would we ever be upset about taking away an opportunity that you have? And that killed me. It does to this day. I still get messages from kids talking about their new teachers and stuff, and being supportive and how awesome they are. And I'm so proud of them. And I've got a kid it hurts me because I saw her face when I said it, and I can still see her face crying. You know, she's a senior now. She's auditioning to go into music ed. She's auditioning to go to school, and still messages me like, I still feel like I'm helping. So why did I pivot? It has nothing to do with education. And why am I in the job that I'm in today? The truth is that my business here, because if you're in content and you're doing content, you're actually listening to this and you're a content creator or whoever you are listening to this, and anything in life, you need to treat it as something that grows, because it will. And if you don't treat it like that, it's already dead. And so when I created this business over 3 years ago, when I first uploaded my videos and started doing Pokemon tutorials, and then it was Destiny, and then all of a sudden streaming tutorials and brand deals and charity streams. You know, we've raised almost $6,000 for, maybe it's $5,000, maybe $5,000 for St. Jude's. Just St. Jude's. Our community is amazing. You know, when I started this 3 years ago, I didn't know where it was going to go. And to be honest, I don't know where it's going to be in another 3 years. I don't know where it's going to be next year. And it scares me because I know there might be a day where this career that I've created for myself, I didn't go to school for content creation or for streaming or anything. It was just another one of those. I found a way to help people. And I still help people on my forums, on YouTube comments. I still help people regardless of status. I literally make videos about budget equipment and free options for you to do these things. So when you're searching, I can try to remove as much of that status and appearance piece and put you into the ability opportunity piece. I'm still doing that. And I think it's taken me this long to realize why I'm in this. I'm not in this to make you famous. I'm in this to help you. I'm not doing, I literally pulled this over because I was like, this will look great on set, but like, I have an entire upcoming series that's built around this test bench. And some of you might be like, but it's not a streaming tutorial. Well, it kind of is, but like, I've been planning this for months. This whole setup couldn't be possible without you. It's nuts. And so this is an opportunity for me to give back and to do what I need to do and to be able to say that you are successful in who you are and that if you want it, you can get it. Just like my 7th grade orchestra teacher told me, you want it, go for it. You don't want it, people don't think you want it, and just stop. It's as simple as that. And so I live that. I don't stay up till it's 10 o'clock. I don't know how long we've been talking, like an hour. I don't stay up till 1 a.m., 2 a.m. Some nights I'm gaming. Let's just be honest. I'm still a gamer, but like most nights recording videos, editing videos, doing all of that. I don't stay up most nights doing that. And just because sometimes it's not fun. Like I don't want to stay up editing videos all night. But let's just be honest. Like I have a vision and I have a future and I want this. I really want this that bad. One day, and as of right now, I'm technically a full-time content creator. I work for a real estate company and I create content for them. I do all of their socials and we work on Google Ads and promote that company. That's my job right now. Like I sit in a room and dream up content and look at analytics. That's what I do. I'm a full-time content creator now. I do it for somebody else. And I know that one day this income and what we do here will overtake what I do there. And that will be that time that we have that hard conversation again. Maybe we'll get there. I don't know. So, you know, present day, looking back to where it all began, getting first Game Boy, you know, playing an instrument, figuring out that I can help people with instruments, finding my wife, having our son, marrying, going through a lot of heartache. You know, nothing was easy. There was a lot of roadblocks, and honestly, we could make this an even like 30-minute more video, but things like, you know, my wife and I had 2 miscarriages, and you know, that was a hard place to be in. You know, she felt broken, and I felt like I had let her down. You know, and a lot of things were like that. Now we have this beautiful son. He's amazing. You know, we went through a long conversation of if he's doing okay, and I think we're, you know, it's just a hard time. But you know, we have people who love us, and it's been a journey. And those of you close to us who know our full story, you know, maybe one day I'll share just a little deeper into the most recent stuff that's happened to us. But if you know the full story of everything that's going on, you know, it's been a hard time. But all I want to say is that I love everything that I do. School, I love my wife, I love my son, I love my community, I love you guys. And you were the reason. Everything I just mentioned is the reason why I get up and do what I do, and I stay up late. You know, one day Hudson will game with me, and one day Hudson will stream with me. We'll have some fun, and he already has a knack for it. If you've never seen him on video, he literally grabs the microphone and just talks into it, and he's just so awesome. But looking 3 years down the road, where do I want to be? I'll tell you where I wish I would be. And wishes are kind of hard to say, but 3 years down the road, I would love to finally be full-time content for this channel. If not this channel, for other projects that I'm looking at. You know, we were going to start up a second channel this year. And we kind of did. It was a streaming channel, and it went nowhere because I got inconsistent with streaming. And partially because those of you who might be wondering to that, you know, I don't stream as much anymore because my life is upside down almost every day. I never even know if I can stream. And when I do, I'm always having something else happen in stream that just kind of feel like I lose momentum. So I just don't stream as much anymore. But the truth is I got really busy really quick between contract videos and sponsorship videos. I feel like I'm losing that connection, and maybe this video is me trying to make that connection with you again. So I'm not sure how this video is going to turn out. I literally just sat down, hit record, and just started talking into this microphone. I don't know what that means. Hopefully I edit this down, record it, and send it up. But if you've made it this far, an hour into this video, if you've made it this far, I have one piece of advice that I have lived by, and I've had to live by, that has never failed me, that I've had to continue doing. Better done than perfect. I know that sounds like anticlimactic, but whatever you're doing, it's better that it be done than perfect. Because if you chase perfection, you will never finish. Because perfection is unachievable. And if you're always looking for perfection, you will always find a flaw. Because as someone who has literally, I built my first car and it like half blew up, you know? I thought it was perfect and then it died. I built this huge career as an educator only to find out that I was getting capped on how I could help kids. And now I'm hitting a roadblock with this channel, what I feel. And my Discord community is nowhere near as active as it used to be. You know, my views are lower, but still good. Not that views define anything, but my engagement on videos are not as big. And I feel like I'm hitting a wall. And that's not me saying anything about quitting. I'm saying that I think it's time for me to really consider that piece where, you know, thinking back to where I almost quit this channel that one time and I pivoted and I tried something that I was passionate about that I was doing that could really help out. And that's why I put this here. I want to try something on this channel alongside what I'm normally doing, but I want to try something that I'm passionate about right now and that I find a lot of joy in. And now that I have some skill in it, I want to be able to show it with you and have that conversation. So what is that? This is a test bench. You haven't figured that out by now. And I've had this thing built for about a month, but it's been in the works for months, a few months. On this test bench, I want to do everything you could possibly imagine that would impact gaming streaming performance. Things like underclocking the CPU to as low as possible to overclocking it, lowering the RAM to as low as possible to overclocking it, and throwing on a bunch of graphics cards that I've kind of stockpiled as the used market's kind of getting really good for graphics cards, and showing you that you don't have to have, like my PC, which is under there, you don't have to have a 5900X and a 3080 Ti, which is my current system. You don't have to have that. You don't even have to have a computer. You literally could just use your cell phone. And honestly, you could just do it at a public library for free. But I want to show you that it doesn't matter so much about the tools as much as it is about the person that's doing it. And the way I'm going to do that is to show you and to prove to you that you don't need the best tools in the world to accomplish things. You don't. But I'm going to show you the right way to think about if you're going to spend money, what's the best investment you can make for that. So we're going to try that. Am I going to become a computer building channel? I don't. As much as I would love that, oh man, I would love that so much. To just have graphics cards sent to me by companies and review benchmarks all day and just tinker with crap. Yes, oh my God, I would just, oh, I would love that so much. But I also know that I barely have time to make content for my channel as is. And how am I going to have time to run benchmarks when I have my current job and everything? So we got to start with something small, something that's manageable and I can create content around. Maybe, just maybe. However, I still want to help out with streaming and stuff like that. So if you've reached this far and you've gotten all this stuff and you see where I'm going, please drop in the comments, jump in my Discord, tweet me. I don't know if I'm going to be on Twitter for much longer. It's becoming a very toxic environment. It has nothing to do with Elon Musk. It's just, have you seen Twitter lately? It's awful. But if you want to just connect with me, I'm here to help. I want to be a part of your future, because I want you to be a part of my future. And if I will help people because I'm good at it, I that's not me knocking or tooting my horn. I've got years behind me that say that I'm good at helping people and that I can help people. Maybe not that I'm good at it, but I have the ability to help people regardless of where they are. So let me be able to do that for you. This has become an extremely long video. I'm not really sure what I'm going to do with it. Hopefully it goes up on YouTube as unedited as possible, probably removing some of the step away times, but I'm not going to like put music in or anything. We're just going to leave in the awkward pauses and me breathing into this microphone. And I'm pretty sure I have a noise gate on, so hopefully there's like dead silence in between things. So that might be annoying. I might put some kind of track. I don't know. Anyway, I'm not going to point you to anything. This video is not sponsored. And I don't think I'm going to monetize this video either. I think I'm just going to let this be a testament of who I am. So that'll be it. I love you guys. Seriously, I love you. Thank you.